And we are live.
We are live.
We are live. We are live. We are live.
Yeah.
What's the current dance move that is trending? I know this one. Oh, I know
You
this
know,
one as well.
I'm an old school girl. I don't know what's trending. I'm the kind of person who just gets into the vibe and I just like,
Okay, see,
yeah, no,
old school.
I don't
What was
know.
the old school move
I'm not a
we used to
TikTok girl.
pass down to on a shoot? I got you. I wanted to say, what's the old school move that you know that you used to like jam to? Like,
Kwasa
was it
kwasa.
like? I know in my era there was oh, you and I both. I was about to
I'm
do the
revealing my age now.
okay. What is this one? Oh, what is this one? Tolata. And the Tolata and the what is this one? The Ngwazi. Yeah, we not bad.
I forgot. That was
Nonetheless.
Twalata. I remember Twalata. There was another one. What is it called again? What is the other one? It's Tiba.
Ooh, tipa guys. Okay, now we are revealing how old we are. Nonetheless, we are live. Hello to you and yours, man. Welcome to it. Live on Oral Pop's Facebook page, also on our YouTube channel, and on Twitter, on our Twitter space. We are live. It is at in_health on Twitter. On Instagram, it is at PopN, and on Facebook, it is Oral PopN. Also on YouTube, www.popn.org gets you the behind the scenes. And my name is Nkosi, and welcome to. We call this It's a Wrap. This is where we bring, I want to say, the light of the community. That is the LGBTQI plus, and we get to sit down with them and go through headlines and get to know them a little bit better. And you are more than welcome to be part of the conversation by leaving your comments in the comment section. Or if you have questions for myself or the guest, you can do so. And if you've missed our previous conversation, go on our social media platforms and just go through our timeline to catch up on both the Clinical Monday and this here feature. It's a wrap. Well, today we're coming to you just under or over rather 12:30, and we are hosting the best of the best of the best in the business. And they go by Belinda Qaqamba. It is a second round that I'm doing with her in terms of in terms of interviews. Did the first one in 2020, just before lockdown at Cape Town Pride. For that, you can simply just find us on YouTube and catch up on that conversation. But they are joining me today for this particular live. We are discussing all things gender non-conforming, gender queer, drag, a lot that we are discussing with Belinda, and you can be part of the conversation. Well, Belinda, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy Friday. Welcome.
Thank you so much, V. I'm so happy to be here.
Ooh, okay. We lost you a bit there. Just as a disclaimer, Belinda's joining us from Cape Town, so I think we might be having a little bit of technicalities with that. But let's try that again, Belinda. If you can hear me, how are you doing? Are you great? Welcome to the feature.
I can hear you clearly, V. I'm doing absolutely fantastic. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing amazing. I mean, we just started off things, dancing. So, already the mood and the sort of vibe for the end of week, beginning of the weekend is set. And I'm excited that you are here. We have a lot to unpack, you and I. And I think we just have to start it off with the headlines. I don't know if you've had the courtesy of going through publications, especially online publications, to look at what has been happening as far as the rainbow community is concerned. The first one, it is the rainbow crossing that has been unveiled in Cape Town for the LGBTQI at the district. I think it's in Greenpoint. Is it Greenpoint? Yes. I don't know if you've seen that. There's a bit of a it's a bit of a touch and go topic. A lot of people are saying, and I've been reading the tweets or the comments. People are saying they're shoving the LGBTQI throats. What are your views when it comes to first that structure or that symbol or gesture by the city, especially for the LGBTQI plus community. And if you've read through the comments, what do you have to say?
Well, I think it is. It's a beautiful initiative by the city of Cape Town, but I also have my own opinions. And my own opinions is basically around the place itself,
Yeah.
the location in Cape Town. That specific location is your typical location of white gay man, which also speaks to privilege and accessibility. And I think that it's not always a space that is welcoming and affirming and enabling to every queer person in South Africa. It's a space where you need to go when you have money. So I don't necessarily think that that specific space was a good idea. Although it's perceived as the location, the gay location in Cape Town. But I'm really skeptical in thinking around that specific space. However, I believe that if we want queer visibility in Cape Town, it's more than just a flag. I mean, it's what is City of Cape Town doing to support trans and gender diverse persons? The focus is always on gay people. Like, it's always in gay people, and by doing that, really suppressing other colorful and queer voices. So that is my opinion around it.
Wouldn't it be then, and I don't want to sound as if like I'm defending the city in this one, Belinda, but to say, maybe they are using the safest, I don't want to say route, but sort of like their safe default would be the LGBTQI plus. When you are using the rainbow flag, it is then representative of everyone that falls under that community. So it would be sort of like a safe flag or safe gesture to put the flag, because they're thinking that it's in representation of everyone.
Now, it depends. I mean, it's a symbol of representation, yes. But it's also a symbol of capitalism, if you think of it. It's going to look good for the city of Cape Town in terms of ticking off a political box. That means that it will draw the pink dollar, and we all know what's the pink dollar, right? City of Cape Town knows that there's a huge a market out there of gay tourists. So they will be drawn to the town. So it is also a marketing strategy. It is also a form of capitalism. It is these neoliberal / capital ideologies, and maybe I'm just too critical about it, but that's how I perceive it.
I got you. On the other side, though, another coin to this, or another side of the coin to this, is that you are dealing with people that are still saying that it is shoved down our throats, and these would be cishet or heterosexual, or well, what is now, as straight people, to say, no, but we can deal with the gays, or we can deal with the LGBTQI plus, but now if you put a structure like that, or if you put a gesture like that, as I would put it, now you're forcing these things or these people down our throats. What say you on that?
You know what? Cis heteronormativity has been shoved down our throats for how many years?
Decades.
Millions. Every single day, it's been shoved down our throats. It has been deemed the social order of the day. Literally, for many of us who doesn't even identify within the cis brackets, right? So for me, for people who say that the LGBTIQ plus community is now being shoved down our throats, they are literally dancing in privilege, because they, for how many years have we literally swallowed cis heteronormativity? So the bathrooms every day reminds us about seasonal nativity. In schools, lines, when children stand in lines, that reminds them of seasonal nativity. Like every day, the order of the day is seasonal nativity. So what does literally a flag contribute in shoving down a queer community? Because at the end of the day, visibility is important. Visibility is important, and the more we misrecognize that we are a diverse country, the more we recognize we misrecognize that we are diverse in gender, diverse in sexuality, the more we are deviating from the true essence of our constitution, which is celebrating diversity in all its manifestations.
I've got you. Let's move on to the next story. Well, I think with this one, some people think that is a win, Belinda, just before we move on to the next story. But on the Cape Town story, because I also saw in Pretoria it's been done. I think it's done at Church Square, and a lot of people were, especially in the LGBTQI plus, particularly gay men, or I've seen gay men and lesbian women responding positively to this, to say there is, or it speaks to visibility. But I think all in all, there are so many issues that these cities are missing when it comes to the queer or the LGBTQI plus community in all its aspects. We don't only need visibility when it comes to such things, but we need issues of bread and butter that we are dealing with. That they need to be dealt with, and they need to be, I want to say, spoken to, and I agree with you on a sense of saying it is sometimes, or it is, capitalism. We are chasing the rent, or, it's a publicity stunt. I often sometimes view it as that because, and it's only, you look at the month, it's Pride Month. Why is it being done now? We as gay men, or rather as the LGBTQ plus persons, we are not only living in October. We have other months, other days, and why now? But nonetheless, that would be my view on that. So RuPaul's Drag Race winner Bianca Rio rather, is headed back into South Africa. I don't know why we don't have Drag Race South Africa as yet, because I feel like we need it.
We don't need it.
You don't need it?
We don't.
Why?
Why are we so fixated with American pop culture?
Somebody can say maybe it is it's the influence that it has, or the I'll use the word influence that it has. That,
but what are we creating for ourselves here? What are we creating for ourselves here? That is, so when we can influence the world, what are we creating for ourselves in South Africa that is iconically and trademark of African essence? I think we've seen all of these franchises. I mean, The Voice, Idols, all of these franchises and adaptations from the West, and I'm here. I don't think that we needed a RuPaul's Drag Race, but I do think that we need drag queens on television, on reality shows. But I don't think that specifically a drag race. And that's perhaps my opinion. I don't. I follow it. I love it. I draw a lot of inspiration from it, but I don't necessarily think that. There's the conversation around that we need a drag race. Why don't we have one? It's for me. It is for me very overrated. The show is overrated. It's been stretched for me too far, to a point where I don't even watch the others. I just watch the American one if I am interested in the season.
I got you. I hear you. Well, in that sense, then, how popular would drag shows be in South Africa? I think similar, to that response, we sort of like touched on that there isn't any in South Africa. And, if there isn't any, how do we create and then support it?
I think, first of all, is that we haven't recognized drag first as an art form. I feel like right now, slowly but surely, we are starting to recognize that drag exists, but drag doesn't um, get the artistic recognition. It doesn't. If it did, during lockdown, when the Minister of Arts and Culture was giving out remedial payments to people for artists suffering, then drag artists would have gotten. I know of drag artists that applied, they didn't even get considered because the art itself is not recognized as a form of entertainment. And the reason for that is because drag itself has been associated with what? With the queer culture. It's been associated with queer culture. I think we need to start at the beginning is the fact that drag needs recognition as an art form itself. And then when we are comfortable with that, then move on to saying that how do we get drag to be a mainstream art form? How do we get drag? And we can get that. We can. There's super talented drag queens in South Africa, both in Joburg, Cape Town, in fact, in all corners of this country. And even outside this country, in other African countries. So we need to get drag into television for visibility purposes. We need to get drag everywhere. But drag for most of the time have been perceived as this art form that needs to operate at night in clubs.
Yeah.
But that's not only what drag is about.
I think that we are missing the point, especially also, not especially, but also in the queer community or in the LGBTQI+ community, we are missing the point of what then would drag be or what it looks like as an art form. And I think what needs then to inform, that knowledge is the education. So it means that we need to be educated, all around, not only as a community, but, as everybody who partakes in the community or who's part of the community. So I think with that, we will then have a clear sense of what drag is. I want us to then touch on drag race gatekeeping. And drag race gatekeeping, wow. I meant drag gatekeeping, if there is such. And then, dive into that a little bit later on. If you just joined us, I'm joined on the line all the way from Gender Dynamics in Cape Town by Belinda Qaqamba, Fassie. Their other name is Abenati Makinana, I hope I'm saying that right. They are a South African genderqueer drag art activist or art, how do I say this?
Activist.
Yes. I always think activist. And activists that creatively weaved different aspects of their African culture and queer identity. And they're an award-winning performer who's also co-founded the World Press Award-winning project, Black Magic, which is a project that was born out of stories of Black, trans, and gender diverse persons who navigate their daily lives in the township of Cape Town. They are bold, or rather hold, right? Actually, they are bold. I mean, you should have seen them used for the cover. They hold a BA humanities, majoring in sociology and social anthropology, a postgraduate certificate in education, be it honors education development and democracy. They pass this with cum laude, so they're not just, cum laude, very important. We must emphasize that. And currently, they are studying holding a master's rather in education in policy studies and at Stellenbosch University. So that's who we have today. If you have any questions with what we've touched on so far with Belinda, you can send through your questions right there on the comment section below, and get to tell us what your views are with some of the topics that you've touched on. But I want us then, Belinda, to talk about the scope of work that you do with Gender Dynamics. We know that you are associated with them, or you work with them or for them. What is the scope of work that you do there at Gender Dynamics?
Okay, so I am the legal advocacy coordinator. So my job is to focus. So let me quickly just give a brief introduction on what gender dynamics is and where I fit in. So gender dynamics is a trans-led and trans-specific organization, and South Africa's first trans advocacy organization that really fights and protects and enhances the advances rather the human rights of trans and gender diverse persons within South Africa and outside its borders. So gender dynamics functions on what I call a three legs pot, which is legal, health, and education. So in terms of education, we advocate for inclusive education in order to create inclusive and affirming schools. In health, we advocate for gender affirming health care for trans and gender diverse persons. And then in the legal, we advocate for the legal gender recognition of trans persons, and that from a legal and human rights perspective, for inclusion of trans people. That is the scope, the organization I'm working for, and I am holding the legal leg, and that leg focuses a lot on legal work around human rights, around policies. Really advocacy work in terms of that. So I do work a lot with regards to the Act 49. I'm sure you know about it. Act 49, which is the Sex Description and Sex Alteration Act of 2003. That one of the projects I'm currently working on is about really questioning the act and its flaws and its problematicness with regards to misrecognition, biomedicalizing, pathologizing trans bodies. So that is the scope of my work. It varies from a legal to a policy framework.
Cool. I got you. And gender dynamics is only in terms of physical structure offices in Cape Town, if I'm correct.
Yes, but we have a physical structure in Cape Town, but we function both in South Africa and regionally, and I mean regionally outside the borders of South Africa.
I got you. Now, is there such a thing we're talking about? Well, we got the gist of what you do, but let's revisit the conversation of drag artisticness or drag artist. Is there such a thing as drag gatekeeping in your view? And if so, how does it look like?
There is. There is. I'm gonna get spicy now. Okay, there is. There is. I mean, there's people who've done drag for many years, and they perceive them the stars of African drag, and then most of the time, some of those people are gatekeepers, because there is this idea that there is only a seat for one of us on the table. And I think that that is the problem that creates gatekeeping in drag, is the fact that we all think there's a seat for one of us on the table, but we don't think that there's actually a seat for all of us on the table. So there is constantly people protecting their seats. And that is the problem where gatekeeping starts. I mean, there is a lot of talented upcoming artists that are mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we are doing enough to enhance, to nurture, to welcome those talents, because it is a competitive art form.
Yeah.
And because we are in a country where this and this and this, or this person and that person is appreciated, or is famous, we protecting our seats. So yeah, that is basically the
Yes.
culture of gatekeeping within drag. So it
I
doesn't.
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of it. I think it's because, like I said, you see now, this speaks to the lack of education when it comes to drag. Because in my head, I'm just thinking, the drag side of the world, it's better because, I don't know, maybe perhaps how it looks, from the outside, as an audience of it, I'm thinking, it looks better, but gatekeeping is more or less intensified or more, on the other side of the LGBTQI plus side of things.
Yeah, I just
in
want to
your
quickly. Sorry. I think you must understand it from this would make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
For RuPaul to stay RuPaul must stay relevant.
I got you.
Do you get it?
Yeah, I got you.
So RuPaul wants to be RuPaul, so RuPaul must stay relevant. So RuPaul, although RuPaul will groom, they cannot be better than RuPaul.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, I'm quite interested to find out what then would. Yeah, but I got you. Let's. I want to.
I know where you want to go. I'm not going there with you.
Let's not go there. I wanted to take us there, but let's come back. In terms of protest, the LGBTQI plus community, when it looks, and also I want us to distinguish within that drag as a formation of its own, or what would be the because we spoke about it and in us not understanding it because it's so much clamped up with queerness. I want us to say, would there be or should there be a detached sort of like we see now that drag it stands alone as drag, and being disassociated from the LGBT or the queer or queerness. And then when it's alone, then you can actually see that, actually it is drag, and it does stand alone. Because now I'm thinking in terms of protest, the LGBTQI plus, especially lesbian women, would then protest for what would be the bread and butter issues for lesbian women. Would drag then be used as a form of protest to deal with the issues that are being faced by drag queens, or queens of drag, or people that drag? And maybe first start with the disassociation, standing alone, and then perhaps maybe drag being used as a form of protest.
Okay, the disassociation is that drag is not a gender identity. Right? It's a form of art. However, we cannot shy away from the fact that many trans women today found themselves through drag.
Yeah.
So drag itself is a form of art, but it's not a gender identity. So it is sometimes poking at gender, and making fun of the construct that is gender. So that is what drag does. But it's not a gender identity. It is a form of art. However, within that art form, it's inspired by the queer imagination, right? So the way in which queer people think, so this imagination can be creative thinking, can be this utopia we create. The fact that I can step on hills and feel elevated and go into a different realm, right? Where I would call myself, I'm the queen, I'm the majesty. That's a different realm. That's a utopia I create. for myself. So drag itself is sometimes the transportation to that realm, an artistic transportation to that realm, but it's not a gender identity, right? So drag itself has emerged, I think, through history as a form of protest. As a form of protest, because it is sometimes mocks the things that we take seriously in society, these constructions on society, somehow transgressing binary lines and borderlines and showing a middle finger, right, to these constructions that we take seriously. So drag is play. It is a protest. It is activism. Hence, what I call then artivism. Right? It's out. It's all the time born from a need. Drag is always born from a need, whether the need for visibility, whether the need for affirming yourself, whether the need to elevate yourself, the way in which Heels does. So it's always born from a need, and itself, it is what I call a form of resistance, because it's a refusal. It's a form of defying norms and binaries. So it is protest in essence.
Wow. I get that, most definitely. I'm following that. So it is, well, could be, or rather it would be, if needs be, used as a form of protest. And I think, we look at the history of the LGBTQI plus or forms of protest. So for me, when I was sort of like drafting down these questions, like, but drag is a form of protest. And I was like, what would be then the issues that a drag protest try to address? What would then be, I like going back to the bread and butter issues, but in that sense, what would be the issues that drag artists would be faced with, and they would then feel that now there is a need for us to protest because we're trying to address those issues?
Yeah, I think I can only speak for myself in terms of that question. My specific drag, when I moved to Cape Town, right? When I came to Cape Town, I was always amazed by the clear racial borderlines and the segregation, and how drag was a constant, this constant representation of whiteness, right? If you look at it, most drag queens want to be white women. And it for me, it was always like, it's something I was struggling with, the fact that why does everyone want to wear long sleek hair? Why does everyone wants to do their makeup to look like a white woman? And that's when I started doing my drag as a form of deviating from whiteness, but to show that there is blackness, and blackness needs to be celebrated, and that drag as a symbol of representation should represent the diversity that exists. But because for me, I was then poking fun by me appearing in an in African costumes. It was poking fun. It's me being rebellious towards a social order that's been normalized and that has been ideologized to praise and to seek whiteness. So protesting in a way, resisting in a way, the order. And I think because for the longest time, and that's why the idea of me being called the Mama Africa of drag came from. It was actually a man by the that I've worked with called Jason King, who first said that I've never seen anything like Belinda. Belinda is the Mama Africa of drag, and I went to think about it, the Mama Africa of drag. And then I understood how loaded that was, because it was from the perspective of Miriam Makeba, who was Mama Africa, and how Miriam Makeba was exiled because of defying the order of the day. So so that is, and that's why I took it as an honor, because I was like, this is loaded. So it says something that I'm doing something right. And that's where I really think that my drag itself comes from a positionality of where I feel we haven't seen a representation that Black women are not represented in drag. The only Black woman that's really that everyone wants to be in drag is Beyonce. Honestly. Honestly. And for me, it was always the thing that Blackness doesn't, but Beyonce is not the epitome of what Black women look like, of Black femininity look like. Beyonce is just a fragment of that, of Black femininity. Black femininity is manifests itself in diverse ways.
Listen, I think the Beyonce fans, the Beehive, is gonna come for us for that talk.
They can come for me. I'm fine.
Gonna come for us for that. But then I think you're quite right in terms of for me, there's a different shade of women, or different kinds of shade of Black women. And I think they can be embodied in different kinds of way. And I think what you did, found a niche, and you went straight. And even though it was poking and in like rebellious and protest form, but it was beautiful to see, because you were saying, here's what is missing, you guys, because everyone was following what would be the normal construct that we find ourselves falling under. If you just joined us, I'm enjoying this conversation. Let me just tell you, I looked at it from saying we need to spend like 30 minutes with you, but I'm thinking we're gonna go an hour just to unpack this. I think the drag on its own is taking up so much, because I have so many questions. I'm joined by Belinda Qaqamba, Fassie, who is also a social justice warrior who's devoted to praxis and approaches centered in the intersectionalities of feminism, also decoloniality and trauma informed, and they have proven experience in facilitating robust engagement among young and old people in communities who are regarding issues of, or rather regarding issues to race, racial justice, human dignity, and gender justice and belonging. They are also actively involved, or were actively involved, in the hashtag Fees Must Fall. I don't know if that movement is still in the horizon, and also in Open Stellenbosch student movement, leading the queer collective that informed part of the movement in Stellenbosch University, contributing indelibly in trans and gender diverse recognition in the institution. Belinda is also a multi-pageant winner with titles such as Miss Drag South Africa 2019 and also Miss Gay Western Cape in 2016, and also comes with a vast experience of knowledge in education, student leadership, and community engagement, and a hands-on field activism. And that's why they are part of, or rather, that's why they are here this afternoon, to really unpack some of these issues. Belinda, we've touched on a bit of drag, a bit of what you do at Gender Dynamics. I want us to move into what then drives. I think I've read in your bio, there is it, now I've lost it, Black Africa Magic, no, Black Magic, yes. Black Drag Magic, yes, that's the one. What informed, or what was the fuel behind that, and where is it now?
Okay. In 2019, I had been established then as a prominent drag queen in the drag scene, and I had the need to create a movement of visibility. And that's when hashtag Black Drag Magic was born. Um, I had then moved or navigated in different townships of Cape Town, and I always met these wonderful performers that didn't have a slot in clubs, but were doing amazing work in their communities. And then I thought, how about we come together and form a movement and really celebrate our stories by us, for us, creating an archive of, of trans and gender diverse persons, creating an archive for generations to come to know our stories, to know our struggles, but also to know our joy, which is drag, because it was drag that brings us together. So the project was then, or is then, a way of celebrating us, but also telling our stories, stories of Black, trans, and gender diverse persons who come from the townships of Cape Town. As you know, that the township space can be quite hostile and brutal and dangerous for trans and gender diverse persons. So it was us creating, trying to reclaim a space that we live in, trying to reclaim and to assert ourselves in that space in a fearless and a velour fashion.
Got you. I got you. You have a space, or you play a very huge role at gender dynamics when it comes to justice and law, dealing with the myths or the injustices that are faced by gender diverse persons. I want us to even touch on education, and I speak it from the point of it being it continuously perpetuating stereotypical patriarchal way of thinking in terms of how we, as people who are not who don't fall under the cishet or heteronormative or straight sort of category, would then need to navigate life. Would you agree with that statement that says, it's still to date very stereotypical and very patriarchal? And I think, other little pockets of conversation would be very misogynistic, very hyper-masculinized. It's a lot. How, okay, maybe then answer that. My follow-up question would be, how then do we change that, that kind of setting that we find ourselves in the education system, or with the education system?
I think I was teaching for 3 years, and I encountered, and my conversation will be informed by my experience. I think education itself, I think, was created with the intention to be progressive. Education was created with the intention to be progressive. It was created with the intention to cultivate citizens who will be able to function fully within the democratic dispensation of South Africa. However, today we see education reproducing inequality. So education contributes indelibly in the reproduction of inequalities, in the reproduction of discrimination, in the reproduction of patriarchy, in the reproduction of transphobia, of homophobia, of queerphobia. It does contribute, in fact, into the reproduction proven of inequality, of poverty. It's not moving away from the very same things that it's supposed to dismantle. it's building.
Yeah.
I think in my position, I agree with that statement that education does contribute to the reproduction of things that we are struggling with today.
Yeah.
Trans and gender diverse persons in education are suppressed. They face discrimination. There's been silencing happening, coming from people who are in a position of power. I mean, teachers. We know of the horrific stories of trans and diverse persons who commit suicide after being discriminated by teachers. So where do we then say as civil society, where do we draw the line and say, in fact, this is enough? Because
Yeah.
schools are supposed to be progressive. Schools are supposed to contribute in promoting human rights, in cultivating citizens that were able to survive, that were able to live in social cohesion with others. So I fully agree
Yeah,
with you on
I
this.
think that joy continuously perpetuating the stereotypical way of thinking in terms of patriarchy and that. And I think Belinda is like, Belinda, I lost you there a bit, because you were touching on that point, load shedding or other things happened to disturb your point. But I got the gist of that. Let's move from that point and then talk about we are living in a binary system. And I think while we're visiting Cape Town, visiting gender dynamics and getting to interact with you guys, for me, it opened up another conversation, especially when it comes to binary and the binary system of living in a country. What would be the first things that we need to challenge in terms of changing this system of life or of how we are structured to live? Because it is quite difficult as a gay man who, I'll be honest, has certain privileges, finds it difficult to navigate this whole life thing with these binaries that we are being set. But I would imagine that it would be difficult or extremely difficult for somebody who does not enjoy the same privileges that I do, and that person would be somebody who is either trans or gender diverse. How do we start challenging the system of that we find ourselves of living under binaries?
I think it's rather a matter of personal autonomy. I think the problem is not necessarily binaries. There are people who are comfortable living in binaries, right? There are people who are comfortable with that. It's fine, but we should not create a society where people who want to deviate from binaries are then face hostility and questioning and discrimination. We should create a society where it's fine, binaries can exist, but there must be space for people who wants to live outside those binaries. Yeah. So I don't think, and yes, binaries has perpetuated hate, but I don't think the problem is binaries. I think the problem is the fact that we want everyone to assimilate in those boundaries. That is the problem.
I got you. Now, I'm thinking when you spoke on the point of education, you spoke about education being created to inform some kind of progression, that there must be progress, right? And I'm thinking in changing and challenging certain things, but do you think how progressive do you think we could have been if we did not function from how things are structured? So you're saying now some people are comfortable with binary, some are not, and it is those that are comfortable or those that, yes, I want to say comfortable, or binaries that informs some kind of discrimination or injustice or what, and education then also at the back of that point continues to birth injustice and continuously spread poverty and all that. If we had, how progressive could we have been if we did not function from this kind of setting that we find ourselves in?
I mean, That question wants me really to think outside the box. Pun intended. It is. I think in terms of schools,
Mhm,
if the binary didn't exist in
mhm,
the school system, schools would be much affirming,
mhm.
enabling, and inclusive spaces.
Yeah.
Um, but the moment a child steps into a school line or steps in the school gates, they are gendered, right?
Mm,
They are gendered in a way, even before they really find themselves. The
mm,
same way that it happens um, in birth when they get born. When you get born, right? You assigned a gender. So
yeah.
it's even happens in schools where you get to be, you must stand in line. This is a toilet, this is the bathroom or toilet you have to use. This is how you're supposed to wear your uniform. So it's a gendered space itself that has created clear borderlines, clear
Mhm,
straight lines, um, that's visible. So my question is then, where does the child fit in that does not want to stand on those lines
mm, mm,
or that wants to transgress those lines? So
mm.
the issue of binary in education is then and one that creates an education that is suppressive,
Yeah.
education that contributes to the reproduction of discrimination and social injustice.
Yeah. Yeah. I want us to then talk about social justice on this next point from a gender spectrum point of view. I almost want to say, how does it look like? But I also want to employ your school of thought on this one, in terms of, I don't want to say challenge, but yeah, in terms of thought, what are you thinking from when we look at social injustice, or what does social justice then look like from a gender spectrum point of
I think social justice from a gender spectrum is, in my case, in my personal opinion and that
view?
of gender dynamics, is from a intersectional lens.
Yeah.
It is not to disregard, like we can be all colorful and fight for gender, but there's other underlying issues that comes with that.
Mhm,
That can be issues of space, or geographical issues. Do you
mhm,
live in the rural areas? Do you live in the peri-urban areas or urban areas or peri-rural areas? Those are issues because geography speaks to accessibility, um, right? And then there is other issues in terms of class issues, and those
mhm,
class issues is that, um, are you part of the working class or are you part of the
mhm,
middle class? Because when you're part of the middle class, whether you are fighting for gender justice, but if you are in the middle
mhm.
class, there's certain privileges that comes with that. That
Yeah.
someone who's living who's coming from a rural background, who is part of the working class, cannot have. So the idea of justice or social justice from a gender perspective is intersectional. It's understanding that each of us carry a different type of struggle,
Mm,
but somehow there's an intersection where these struggles meet. So when we fight, we must fight taking in consideration that we cannot have voices that are privileged speaking for the underprivileged.
mm, mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's even when you, as someone who carries certain privileges, you speak um, around issues of inequality, around issues of suppression. You need to be aware, and you must actually recognize your privilege.
Yeah.
Recognizing your privilege, because then you're able to create a space that is enabling and affirming.
Got you. Yeah. Listen, I want us to, I think every topic that we have is a topic, on every point rather that we touched on is a topic on its own. Yeah, that needs unpacking.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's going to be a very light, very light conversation. But hey,
I'm not a very light person, if you know me. Like, I have my light days, but when you ask, activism questions here, then the activism in me wakes up.
Comes up, and I wanted the activism in you. I wish I wish you could have spent a lot more time on this platform with the activism in you. I think because you're doing such an important job. Speaking of activism, this would then be, I want to say, a two-tailed question based on you personally as Belinda, as an activist, and what you do at Gender Dynamics, with the case that you deal with in terms of policy law. How do we inform that? Can I say, how do we then not put on gloves and handle it, but how do we then challenge, from an activism point of view, the system? Are we seeing, especially because of Act 49, and you're dealing with this on a daily, how do we actively, continuously continue to challenge it until we see it come crumbling down? Because I think at this point it is quite resisting, and if there is progress that is made in those spaces.
I think I actually had this conversation with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Organization like Gender Dynamics will exist till there is no need for us to exist. While there is a need for us to exist, we will fight. Till there is full liberty, till there is full recognition of transgender diverse persons, these doors will be open and we will be soldiers. We will fight. Still, there's no reason to fight anymore. But I think till this day, we have a reason to fight. So the fight continues. The struggle continues. A lucha continua. So to speak about it, we as a people just want to be recognized. We want to take up space in society like everyone else. We want to exist. We want to enjoy the same constitutional rights as everyone. So that we can also flourish and live into this beautiful so-called rainbow nation. But if we're not going to get to that point, then there is every day a reason for us to fight.
Listen, and you guys are fighting, and we see it. And it's quite important that the fight keeps on keeping on until there is no fight anymore, or there is no need for us to fight anymore. Belinda, I really appreciated your time. I still do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for stepping into this platform and talking on really important issues that from someone who is sitting outside might think that that is not important, or but these are issues that are that we are faced with as a community, and I think that we need to do. There is something that needs to be done to address those issues. In closing short message, what would you say?
Short message. I think this is for my community. We need to start loving each other more. We need to realize that we need each other, and that we can't function as an island. We really, I feel like sometimes when I look at us as a community, we always want to fight our struggles separately. While our struggles are not the same, we are of one community. And then we really need to understand that we genuinely need each other. And I think that um, now more than ever, we need each other.
Most definitely. Listen, Belinda, thank you so much for your time. All the best in anything and everything that you do. My screen has been popping with love and just it's all love. And well, the love is for you. I think Mina, they see me every weekend or every week, so they know me, but the love is for you. So I'm sending all the love to you. Give our best regards to the team, and we will see you hopefully soon when you pop into our office right here in Tshwane and in Ekurhuleni. And yeah, just thank you very much for being a positive light, and happy Friday.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your week. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah. Fassie, who just joined us, ladies and gentlemen. With that said, if you just joined us, you can catch this conversation. It's going to be up on our social media platform. Don't forget to pop in wherever you are, and also pop in on our social media platforms. Also, pop in at Gender Dynamics. You can find the information. Yes, we'll share that with you just as we end this live. Well, until Monday, as we share to Dore Kakasa from the TBHIB Harmless Project. I'm going to see you then. Happy streaming. Happy Friday. Bye.
Bye.